We live in a world that rewards what looks normal. We applaud the predictable, the socially polished, the easy to understand. But history, real human evolution, was never shaped by the normal ones. It was moved forward by the ones who didn't fit in, the ones with odd routines, quiet minds, and habits that looked strange on the outside, but brilliant from within. Most people think talking to yourself is a sign of loneliness, awkwardness, or even instability, but in reality, it's one of the strongest signs of a powerful, active, self regulating mind. Highly intelligent people don't just think, they process out loud. They aren't talking to themselves because they lack company. They're talking to themselves because their brain has too much input to hold in silence. Speaking out loud helps them organize thoughts, solve problems faster, and turn chaotic ideas into clarity. Den research shows that talking to yourself actually improves memory, focus, and decision making. It's the brain's way of sorting information, separating logic from emotion, and building structure inside the mind. Belayans, some people rehearse conversations, some repeat instructions out loud, some say things like, okay, first I'll do this, then I'll fix that. It may look strange to others, but it's an internal coaching system, form of mental discipline. Intelligent people do this because their brain doesn't just think, it narrates, analyzes, and edits in real time. Talking to yourself also means you're comfortable with your own company, which is a rare sign of emotional maturity. Most people need external validation. Intelligent people create internal guidance. Belanger. So the next time someone says, "Why are you talking to yourself?" And you can smile and think, because my brain is working at a level yours may not understand. Yeah, yeah. Most people associate staying up late with laziness, bad discipline, or lack of routine. But in highly intelligent people, it's often the opposite. Night owls aren't awake because they have nothing to do. They're awake because their mind is too full of things to think about. Lend you for an intelligent brain, nighttime is freedom, the world gets quiet, messages stop coming, no one needs anything, no noise. No pressure, no interruptions, and in that silence, the mind finally breathes. Gendia. This is when intelligent people plan, reflect, create, analyze, or dive into deep thinking they can't access during the noise of the day. Their brain becomes most alive when the world is asleep. Some write, some research, some overthink. eh, some solve problems they didn't have time to process earlier. It's not procrastination, it's mental synchronization. Their inner world doesn't follow the same schedule the outer world does. Bellian science even shows that night owls often score higher on creativity tests, independent thinking, and problem solving. Why? Because staying up late is not just about time, it's about freedom from social rhythm. Intelligent people don't always follow systems, they create their own. And let's be honest, the late night thoughts hit differently. You start asking deeper questions. You connect ideas others don't see. You unlock creativity that doesn't show up in daylight. Media. So if you've ever been judged for being up too late, understand this. Some minds don't rest just because the clock says sure EPM. Some minds are busy building futures, exploring realities, and untangling thoughts while everyone else is dreaming. Hmm? You're not undisciplined. You're mentally awake in a world that sleeps too early. One of the most misunderstood traits of highly intelligent people is their need to withdraw. This isn't isolation, arrogance, or dislike for others. It's mental protection. Intelligent minds don't just think. They absorb, they observe everything: tone, energy, patterns, words, emotions, details most people don't even notice. And that level of awareness is mentally expensive, Bien. So while the average person might feel energized by constant interaction, intelligent people often feel drained by it. not because people are bad, but because too much noise blurs their inner clarity. Tom Manja. They need solitude the way others need stimulation. Alone time is not loneliness, it's mental oxygen. It's where they recharge, reflect, and return to themselves. In solitude, intelligent people, process conversations they've had, analyze decisions and possibilities, think deeply without interruption, you know, reconnect with their true identity, generate creative or strategic ideas, observe life from a higher level, not inside the crowd. You know, some people fear being alone because they don't like being left with their own thoughts. But intelligent people, they trust their inner world. They enjoy the silence that others run from. And here's the truth. If you're constantly surrounded by people, you're constantly adjusting to them. Intelligent people know that too much social noise can cause them to lose alignment with who they really are. Belian. So they build distance not out of rejection, but out of self preservation. They are not antisocial. Okay, they are pro clarity, and the world often misunderstands that. It labels them cold, distant, or too quiet, when in reality, they are simply choosing depth over distraction. Mullions. If you've ever been told, you're too quiet, you don't talk much, you disappear a lot, why don't you hang out more? Gemdrin smile, because what they call strange wisdom calls self-awareness. You're not avoiding people. You can, you're protecting your energy, and that is a high form of intelligence. Dhamma daydreaming has always been misunderstood. Teachers call it distraction. Parents label it not paying attention. Society treats it like a flaw, something to fix. But here's the truth. Daydreaming is one of the strongest signs of a deeply intelligent and imaginative mind. Melandus, when highly intelligent people stare out the window, zone out in conversations, or drift away into their own world, they are not escaping life. They are expanding it. Their brain isn't idle. It's building ideas. It's solving future problems. Yeah, it's connecting invisible dots that others don't even see. Daydreaming is mental simulation. Okay? It's a preview of possibilities, a playground for invention, a rehearsal for life, and neuroscientists confirm it activates the same brain areas used for planning, creativity, memory, and strategy. Get 'em. Einstein used to daydream about riding next to a beam of light. That distraction later gave birth to the theory of relativity. Nikola Tesla said he built machines in his mind, let them run, and tested them before ever touching a tool. JK. Rowling created the entire Harry Potter universe while staring out a train window. Bomb daydreamers don't live in fantasy. They visit the future before it exists. And here's what most people don't realize. A mind that can wander is a mind that can wonder. And a mind that can wonder can create, innovate, and transform. LB India. So if you've ever been told, come back to earth, stop zoning out, pay attention, you know, you're too lost in your head. Maybe the real message was, you know, your mind is operating at a depth they can't follow. Band daydreaming is not careless thinking, it is selective thinking, choosing to think beyond the obvious. You're not distracted, you're mentally traveling. And the greatest discoveries in history were made by people who dared to think outside the moment they were in. Beyond don't stop daydreaming. That's where the future first visits you. Yalano. Stop overthinking. That's the advice people always give. But they don't realize that for highly intelligent people, overthinking isn't a choice, it's a cognitive default. Found their brain doesn't just react, it dissects. It doesn't take things at face value. It questions, analyzes, evaluates, and explores possibilities most people never even consider. Omengus, when something happens, the average mind asks, what happened? But the intelligent mind asks, why did it happen? What does it mean? What could it lead to? What if something else had happened instead? Bands that depth of thinking is why they often seem quiet, hesitant, slow to answer, or emotionally complicated because they are not responding to the moment, they are responding to all the possible layers beneath it. Band overthinking is not confusion, it is intellectual precision. Balemdian. They think deeply because they want to understand every angle. They care about long-term consequences. They don't want to say or do something without meaning. They see patterns, risks, and emotions others miss. You know, they recognize that life is rarely simple and humans are never one-dimensional. This is why intelligent people struggle with things like, making quick decisions, tolerating shallow conversations, letting go of unresolved situations, accepting just because as an answer, watching people lie to themselves or others, you know, they're not dramatic, they're mentally awake. Their brain is constantly connecting dots, asking what if, and replaying things that didn't sit right. And yes, sometimes it's exhausting. Sometimes they get stuck in their own thoughts, and sometimes they wish they could just switch off like everyone else. But overthinking is also what makes them, great problem solvers, excellent planners, emotionally aware, you know, deep conversationalists, inventive, cautious, and insightful. No, a shallow thinker sees life as a moment. Can it? A deep thinker sees life as a map. Chalina. So the next time someone says you think too much, remember that's not an insult. That's a quiet admission that you think on a level they don't. Overthinking is not weakness. Okay, it is mental depth trying to find a landing place. And most people think boredom is a flaw, a sign of impatience, lack of discipline, or immaturity. But for highly intelligent people, boredom is not a weakness. It's a signal that the mind is starving, like a signal that the environment is too predictable, a signal that the task lacks depth, stimulation, or meaning. Big. Intelligent people don't get bored because they are lazy. They get bored because their brain is moving faster than the world around them. Routine tasks feel like mental imprisonment. Mindless conversations feel like static noise. Okay, repeating the same pattern feels like slow death to the imagination. Men did their mind needs, complexity, creativity, purpose, discovery, learning, growth, problems worth solving, that's why many highly intelligent people jump between hobbies, explore different subjects, or switch interests quickly. It's not inconsistency, it's mental hunger. Mean the same brain that gets bored fast is the brain that learns new skills quickly. You know, masters concepts others struggle with. Create new systems instead of obeying old ones. Invents instead of imitates. You know, questions instead of accepts. A predictable life comforts the average mind. But for a high level thinker, predictability feels like a cage. They don't want more to do, they want more to understand. This is why many intelligent people struggled in school. You know, not because they couldn't learn, but because the system couldn't teach at the speed or depth of their mind. Meanjins, they don't need entertainment, they need stimulation. They don't crave attention, they crave engagement. Aliens, they don't want constant activity, they want meaningful activity. Anji, and so if you've ever been called easily bored, too picky, or never satisfied, understand this. You are not hard to please, you are hard to underwhelm. Lumdium boredom for the intelligent is not emptiness, it is the mind whispering, you know, there's something bigger you're meant for, Kyle. They don't just hear, they pick up patterns, tones, and hidden meanings. And they don't just walk through life, they analyze it. A lens where most people overlook the small things, intelligent minds catch them instantly. A slight change in someone's voice, you know, a micro expression that lasted half a second, and a missing word that reveals a hidden truth, a shift in energy no one else felt, a pattern others think is random. You know, this attention to detail doesn't come from paranoia, It comes from heightened awareness. Their brain is wired to collect data, connect dots, and detect meaning even where others see nothing. Melanges, they notice, the way someone smiles differently when they're lying, the contradiction between what is said and what is done, the subtle signs of tension in a room, you know, the emotion behind a sentence, not just the sentence, the unspoken rules others follow without thinking. Right? This is why intelligent people often feel like they see too much or feel too much. They are constantly processing information other people filter out, and it works both intellectually and emotionally. Lant, they don't just remember facts, they remember exact wording, timing, energy, the mood of the moment. That's why they can recall something from years ago with accuracy while others forget yesterday. Lambda. But this ability also comes with challenges. They can't unsee what others ignore. They get mentally tired faster. They notice insincerity before the mask fully slips. Like they get frustrated when people say you're overreacting, when in fact they're over observing. I know this trait is what makes them great analysts, great judges of character. I know great storytellers, great strategists, great problem solvers, great creators, because they don't need to be told the truth. Um, they spot it in the cracks of reality. Vamdia, some call it being too sensitive, some call it reading too much into things. But the truth is, they are reading what is actually there, just at a depth others can't access. Mullen, noticing details isn't a burden. It is a form of intelligence most people will never understand. When someone with high intelligence is forced into surface level